What's going on, people? LP2000, I'm back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews. And today we're going to take a break from the X Plus figures I normally do here on the channel. And today we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite Kaiju films of all time. And I'm not here alone. I have support and help from my fellow Godzilla YouTuber, my brother from another mother, Matt Jacobson, also known as Gojira851 here on YouTube. And together we will talk about our favorite top 10 Kaiju films of all time. They span from Godzilla to Gamera, you know what I mean? Just a whole plethora of Kaiju films. We highly recommend these films for anybody getting into the Kaiju genre or people that are already into it. We highly recommend these films on our top 10 list to anybody that wants to get into the genre, you know what I mean? We do have similar films on our list, but we do have some differences between our lists, which will hopefully make for a highly entertaining commentary. So sit back, relax, get your popcorn, get your drinks, whatever you want to do. This is a lengthy discussion. We're going on 2 hours here. So sit back, relax, put on your favorite earbuds, and listen to us talk about our favorite top 10 Kaiju films of all time. Alright? I thank you for listening to the commentary. I hope you enjoy it. Now we'll see y'all again on that figure and move review. Alright? Enjoy the commentary. What's going on, people? LP2000 right back at you with another video. Yes, this is another audio commentary along with myself and my fellow Godzilla YouTuber, my brother from another mother, Matt Jacobson. And of course, you know him better as Gojira851. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Here it is, Thanksgiving Day. We just got finished eating. You know, we've been having a great, relaxing day on both our ends. And tonight we just wanted to have a little discussion revolving, at least regarding our favorite, or at least our top 10 Kaiju films of all time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we go through this, Matt and I have not shared our picks this evening. We're both going into this blind. Of course, he and I have been really close friends for the past few years. So we kind of have an idea, at least a couple entries on this list, but for the most part, we're going into this blind, you know what I mean? And we'll just talk about why they're our favorites and why we will highly recommend these films to anybody that's trying to get into the Kaiju genre or people who are already in the Kaiju genre but just want to know more about more films or what they should try and go out their way and try to watch. On my end, I would like to have, I have 10, and this was really hard for me to try to put into 10 because I have so many different favorite Kaiju films as it relates to Godzilla, Gamera, and other things. But I would like to mention 3 honorable mentions that would have made the list, but the 10 on my list are highly enjoyable. And Matt, if you want to talk about your honorable mentions after I mention mine, please go ahead. The 3 honorable mentions on my list is, of course, the original Godzilla 1954 film. I think that film is amazing, and of course, it should be on everybody's list. You know, without that film, we wouldn't have the Kaiju genre. It would be basically non-existent. Another film on my honorable mentions list is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Yes, I love that film. It's one of my favorites, or my favorite from the Godzilla Heisei film series, and I love that film to death. And number 3, my honorable mention is Godzilla vs. Megaguirus from the Millennium series. Of course, there's a certain other film in that film series that I love better, but I think Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is a very, very great film. It's a solid film. It's kind of overlooked in my opinion. It's not talked about a lot. So those are my 3 honorable mentions. So Matt, what are your honorable mentions?
Well, I would also like to list Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, the 91 film from the Heisei series. That's one of my favorite Godzilla films as well, and Kaiju films. Another honorable mention would be From 1967, we got King Kong Escapes from Toho. Interesting film, fun film as well, but as far as making the top 10, I have several other films that are from that same kaiju that might overshadow it. And what would a third film be on my list?
You know what? I gotta stop you right there. The fact that Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is on your honorable mentions list, because I would have thought for sure if I had to put money on it that film would have made your top 10. So the fact that it didn't make it leaves me very, very intrigued and interested on what the top 10 may be. Because I know you love 91. I know you love the design. I know you love the film. You know, despite the perceived issues that it has, I know that you love everything about the film. So the fact that it didn't even make the top 10 as far as you're concerned really says a lot. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I had to just talk about that.
That's all right. Well, the way how I feel about it is that I had to step back and I had to look at the kaiju genre or tokusatsu as a whole, and I tried to think about everything rolled into one. There are several honorable mentions that I had on different lists that have made this. My list is pretty much comprised of films. If you have never seen a kaiju film, these are top 10 films that if you watch, you'll fall in love with the genre. Pretty much. Now, some say that Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is an acquired taste. Okay, fine. So I left that for my own personal list when it comes to Godzilla. My list was more like an open area where everyone could just join in and then go off and enjoy, say, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah or others at a later date.
Right. All right. So your honorable mentions were Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, King Kong Escapes, and what was the other one?
I forgot. Oh, Matango. Yes, number 3 is Matango. Okay. An odd film. I saw this film for the first time back in, 1997 at a comic book store. And it wasn't on this is a long time before DVDs and Blu-rays, all that stuff. This was on a VHS bootleg copy, and I got to watch it in the back room. It is an odd film. Have you seen Matango yet?
No, I haven't. I haven't. There's a few other Toho films that I've been wanting to see, but I haven't had a chance to see them. Matango being one of them, The Mysterians being another one, Latitude Zero, I have not seen that one yet. I have not seen The H-Man. I have not seen The Battle in Outer Space. So there are a few out there that I have not seen, but yes, Matango is one of them. I've heard some things about it, but I haven't heard too much about it where I'm interested in seeing it. I would like to at some point, but it's not going to be like my top priority to try and track the film down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. As a film, I enjoyed it when I saw it. It's been 20 years since I've seen it, but if you're a fan of the zombie genre, you're a fan of suspense horror, like where you're trapped inside, like cabin fever kind of stuff, then Matango is a good film. It's not really a quote like kaiju film, but it is a really cool horror monster movie as well. So if you get a chance, yeah, give it a chance. But I wouldn't be knocking anyone's door down to try to get to it though. So, but
All right. So now we got that out of the way. Let's go into our top 10 favorite kaiju films of all time. Now, he and I have done videos on our respective channel about our favorite kaiju films, our favorite Godzilla films in particular. But these are just kaiju films as a whole. Like I said, it can go from Godzilla, Gamera, if you want to throw an Ultraman in there, Dimension. This is just our personal list between our individual selves of what our favorite top 10 kaiju films. Basically, these films will never get old. These films are the elite as far as myself and as far as Gojira851 is concerned. So number 10, and I'll just start first. My number 10, and this is kind of cheating a little bit, but I have to make it clear. I look at these films as like one story arc. You know what I mean? And my number 10 is the Gamera trilogy from the Heisei period. I love these films. I love the fact that it's a more grounded, dark, serious take on Gamera. Of course, I'm a huge Gamera fan. How he ended his films in the Showa period was very, very questionable. And the fact that they were able to bring him back in the Heisei and just weave a great story and redefine how you do kaiju films is really amazing. The thought of a giant breathing turtle that can fly around like a flying saucer, you know, that befriends children that with weight problems. I could, you know, and if you saw his Showa Gamera films, at least a good part of the latter ones. You know, there are a few in the early part that I recommend, but the latter ones were really, really, really silly, cheesy, very kid friendly. But when they came back in the Heisei period, they really just did a 180 on the character and created some of the best kaiju films ever. I would argue to say that Gamera's Heisei films are better than the actual Godzilla Heisei films as a whole. If we judge them films as a whole, I have to give the nod to Gamera over Godzilla. In the Showa, I have to do the opposite. Godzilla had better Showa films than Gamera, but in the Heisei, Gamera reigns supreme with Guardian of the Universe, Gamera 2, Gamera 3. Each, and once again, I know I'm cheating because, you know, there are 3 different movies, but it involves one story arc with Gamera, so I had to include all 3 on my number 10 list. You know what I mean? They're fun, they're dark, they're serious, they're grounded. They redefine, like I said, the kaiju films and how you look at them. They breathe a new life into the character of Gamera, and with these films, to me, they make Gamera seem more like a Godzilla ripoff or a Godzilla knockoff. So they did great things for the kaiju genre as well as for Gamera himself. So that's my number 10, Gamera, his Heisei film trilogy.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie, they made the list, but not at number 10. We'll get into that later. Let's just say that's a great pick. That's a great way to start it off.
Thank
and it kind of puts my number 10 kind of to shame, because I did have another number 10 in the way, but I thought it should be higher up on the list. But, we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
Okay, so number 10 for me is Pacific Rim. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I possibly follow the Gamera trilogy? You're right, I can't with the Pacific Rim. Now, how I feel about Pacific Rim is, yes, it's a popcorn film. Yes, it's silly and goofy. However, when you step back and you look at it from a whole, imagine being invaded by a force. You have no idea where it comes from. You have no idea where to, how to develop ways to defeat it. And you see that what you can do to defeat it actually costs more in what you need to, protect yourselves. So you have to create monsters of your own, which actually, drains your world even more. So it's a great story of these monsters, which all look awesome, by the way. I don't think there's a bad-looking kaiju in Pacific Rim. And then the story of defeating them and then having to live with yourselves as well, because of all the mental imaging and all the different PTSD everyone is having while fighting these monsters, and also having to sacrifice family and loved ones to have to save the rest of the world and to sacrifice yourself as well. It's a great film, not only as action popcorn, but also as a great human study as well. But as far next to the Gamera trilogy, I'm kind of I guess it's a little lackluster, I guess.
Actually, I don't think it's lackluster, and that's a solid number 10. Pacific Rim as a film is great from beginning to end. It's something not exactly different, but what I love about Pacific Rim is the fact that they were able to open new doors for kaiju films, and it got a lot of more fans into this genre of films, and they treat it like a kaiju film, and they treat it like a serious kaiju film. It just doesn't have the silly, cheesy special effects and bad acting that one would think are associated with these type of films. They actually treat it in a serious type of way. And of course, the kaijus are awesome, but to me, I think the selling points are the Jaegers, the giant robots. I think those are awesome. I mean, who would not want to be a part of something like that, where you and your partner are sharing like what's it called, a neural bridge, where you are sharing each other's thoughts, but yet those thoughts, or at least your connection with the other person, is what makes you pilot the robot better. So between that and then the kaijus, and it's just a solid film from beginning to end. And I think without Pacific Rim, or at least breathing more life into the genre of kaiju films, I think it gave more life to the kaiju film, and then when Godzilla came afterwards in 2014, which led to Shin Godzilla, which then led to Godzilla Monster Planet, and I'm sure and of course Godzilla 2 from Legendary, Kong vs. Godzilla. I think Pacific Rim has a lot to do with why the kaiju boom is flourishing here in America. Of course, in Japan, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be around. But here in the U.S., I think Pacific Rim, with it being an American film, but yet based out of Asia and into the kaiju culture, it really did a lot of great things for the genre and for fans as a whole. So yes, I agree with you on that. Yes, awesome.
All right.
All right, so that's our number 10. Mine, Gamera Heisei Film Trilogy, Matt's Pacific Rim. So let's go with number 9. And Matt, the floor is yours.
All right, I'm probably going to get some heat for this because this film isn't higher up on the list. But we have, from 1961, I believe the year it was, we have the original Mothra.
Okay.
That's right. We have the original Mothra, which gave birth to future incarnations of Mothra, whether it be her trilogy or the critically acclaimed and one of best Godzilla films there is, Mothra vs. Godzilla in 1964. So, just this entire... At first, I saw this film when I was, 4 years old, and I didn't like it very much. I couldn't really get into it because I had just watched Mothra vs. Godzilla. I'm saying to myself, oh, where's Godzilla this whole time? It's the same place. Where is he? And I didn't really grasp it at the time that this is something else and we should enjoy it for something else. Then I watched it later on in my life. And there's so many things about it that are just makes it so much more beautiful than when it was back then. Don't trifle with Mother Nature. Keep your mind. Don't be so greedy in life. You're going to upset the balance of things, and sooner or later, a giant calamity is going to come and destroy everything. Take responsibility and set things right, or you're not going to be able to in the future. It's going to affect people down the line as well.
Right.
The original Mothra movie. Excellent film. Also. It was a wonderful modern special effects for Toho as well, which they implemented into future Godzilla films as well. Because if we look at the original 3 Godzilla films, Gojira, Raids Again, and King Kong vs. Godzilla, they look great, but there's something about the Mothra film. It's like they upped the ante with it. All the miniatures look better. All the sets look a little better. All of the practical effects they use as well, and that actually translated over to the Godzilla films as well. So with Mothra actually, paving a way so the Godzilla can do better. I'm not saying that it's better than Godzilla. I'm just saying, just as a little bridge towards the two franchises.
Absolutely. And I, too, love the Mothra film. Now, my exposure to Mothra, I was in high school when I first saw Mothra. And I didn't see the original Japanese version. I saw the Columbia cut, the U.S. version.
Yeah, that's the one I have as well.
And Mothra is a different film because, of course, it features a giant monster that not really terrorizes the city. She does destroy the city, but the reason why she's destroying the city is because she's trying to reclaim the fairies. That was different. And the fact that the story had a human villain, where the monster wasn't really the villain, the human villain, the one that guy that abducted the girls, the fairies in the first place, he's actually the true villain of the film. Mothra is there to come in to save them. Was just a different take. And I don't know what they thought of when they had this story in place. 2 little fairies that sing to a giant moth. I don't know what they were thinking, but I'm glad they did, because Mothra is one of the most colorful and just coolest characters ever in the Godzilla universe, that was transitioned into the Godzilla universe, and I just feel bad that this film is good on its own, which is why I don't understand why they recreated it, at least some of the scenes for Godzilla vs. Mothra 1992.
Yeah, almost shot for shot, they recreated it. Like, why bother?
Yeah, why bother? The film was found on its own. So, now, mind you, it's not as gritty and somber as the original Godzilla film. And you might as well say it's not as kind of like suspenseful as Rodan was. But Mothra is a feel-good monster movie where, for one, the monster doesn't die at the end, and number two, she's not destroying Japan or destroying the world because she wants to destroy the world. She has a reason why she's there, and she's trying to reclaim the fairies. And the fact that, like I said, it has a human villain versus the monster being the menace was really like a fresh take on the story. So that's nice. I agree with you. Mothra, that's cool. Really cool.
Cool.
Now, my number 9, and I have my wife sitting behind me, but even though I'm about to say it, and like you, it should be high up on my list, but once again, these films, like I said, it was hard putting this list together, but I had to put them in a way that I would enjoy them. And, of course, the bottom line is that it made my top 10 list, but my number 9 is GMK.
Hater.
Yes, GMK, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah's Giant Monsters All Out Attack. Yes, I love the film. I do. I love Godzilla's design. His evil persona in this film is awesome. Everybody who knows anything about me that I prefer Godzilla's personification, or at least his character, as a straight-up villain, a straight-up badass villain. And in this one, him being possessed and just an evil, brutal, mindless engine of destruction is awesome. Then being opposed by Baragon, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. The reason why, of course, it's not higher up on my list because I don't like the characterizations of King Ghidorah and Mothra in this film. More so King Ghidorah because I'm a King Ghidorah fan. And, of course, I know the reason behind them making them smaller or at least somewhat weaker versions than their previous incarnations was they wanted to make Godzilla seem stronger, or at least more powerful, or more evil, I should say. But my argument for that is Godzilla has defeated them before, at least King Ghidorah before, when he's the smaller of the two. So you didn't really need to do that. You didn't really have to sacrifice Mothra and King Ghidorah's character to accomplish that. You know what I mean? But they did. But that's the only couple reasons why it's not higher up on my list. But however, it's the only film from the Millennium series that I actually do enjoy. I mean, I enjoy all the rest of them. But GMK is like the shining star. It's like the crown achievement as far as the Millennium era goes. So yes, that's my number 9, GMK. I love to death. Sorry, babe. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah, she's getting red right now.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have that long talk after we get off the phone. All right.
So, a little sidebar. That picture from the X Plus Expo, are you going to get that 25 centimeter new GMK, or are you going to pass on that? I don't know if you're a big fan of 25 centimeters.
I'm not really. And I'm kind of GMK to death figure-wise, so I may just pass on it.
No such thing.
I doubt it. I mean,
2 strikes.
Because I don't really. I don't know. It just depends on. I don't know. I may change my mind because I'm getting now more to the point collection-wise where I don't want to just get every single thing just because.
I understand.
You know what I mean? Because I don't want to be. I don't want to be these collectors that have. They get stuff, right, and they buy so much stuff, and they can't really display it properly. You know, we've seen pictures of people, like, having bins and bins of stuff because they don't have space in their houses or their homes or their apartments to display them properly. And I don't want to get to that point, and so that means I have to pass on some things. And plus, I have the gigantic GMK, and that to me is, like, the best version of GMK, so anything else that comes out, even though they may look good, may be a step down, but I don't know. So far,
I guess from your perspective, you've got the turkey. Why do we need mashed potatoes, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly right. You're absolutely right. So, that was number 9. GMK for me, Mothra for Matt. So let's go on to number 8, and now it's my turn. My number 8 is Godzilla versus Biollante from the Heisei period.
Ooh.
Yes, another film that should be higher up on my list, but once again, the films that come afterward, you understand why. But once again, I think Godzilla vs. Biollante is the best of the Heisei series. Selfishly, I like to think Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is the best of the Heisei film series, but...
Because it is.
Well, that's the thing. Selfishly, it is to me, but if you were to ask me to recommend that to a Kaiju newbie or to somebody who's never seen a Godzilla film before, I wouldn't recommend Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah because of the story and because it takes a while for stuff to get going. You know, I mean, I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. Because if somebody really wanted to get into the films, and you know, some people are not willing to wait an hour before Godzilla appears on screen. You know what I mean? I mean, 'cause people barely did that with 2014, right? And that was like one of the major complaints. But I think Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah was more so a film made for Godzilla fans. But with Biollante, Godzilla is in the film a whole lot more. It's very, very grounded. To me, it's a continuation of 1984, which I thought was a great way to kick off the Heisei series. But yes, Godzilla vs. Biollante is awesome. Now, I know some people don't like Biollante. I know some people think that she's a lackluster monster. The fights between the two are not really that engaging. But between Godzilla coming back, the Super X, the protocols they have put in place with the 4 alarm systems, you know, just Biollante being a monster as she is, you know, I just think that it's a great, solid Godzilla film from beginning to end, and that's why it's on my list. So yes, it's like I said, Godzilla King Ghidorah selfishly is my favorite of the Heisei period, but to a Kaiju newbie or to anybody just coming in, I would point to Godzilla vs. Biollante as the best the Heisei films had to offer. That's just me.
Also, with Godzilla vs. Biollante, it is a great continuation from the 84 film. Plus, it also shows humanity actually stepping forward and trying to develop new ways to defeat Godzilla. Like, you got your Super X2 actually designed to reflect his atomic breath. Plus, you also have the anti-nuclear energy bacteria as well. Mm-hmm. You've got kind of a global kind of look to it as well. You know, people trying to steal the bacteria. You know, people trying to interfere in Japanese law and stuff like that. You know, it's very interesting as well, but if you have any other doubts about Godzilla vs. Biollante, I want to refer you to this one part of the movie. It takes place on Mount Mahara. A couple of bombs go off, and it's the first real appearance of Godzilla. Once you see that, your jaw will be on the floor, and you'll have to glue it back together.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's one of the best resurgence scenes I've seen in a Godzilla film.
Cool.
Probably the best.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to look into them again, but whatever. Okay.
So what's your number 8?
My number 8 is the Toho classic, Rodan.
Okay.
Now, this film starts off as a suspenseful thriller. You know, there's a bunch of workers working in the mine shaft looking for stuff. All of a sudden, there's a cave-in, and several of the people go missing. Then when their bodies are found, everyone thinks that the one survivor actually killed them because he came out all, like, delirious. And we find out it's these tiny little monsters called Meganula, which actually goes into one of your honorable mentions, Godzilla vs. Megagear. It's not the same exact monster, but it's the same idea as them. Everyone's like, oh, how are we going to defeat these? Till something even bigger comes. The 2 Rodans, the gorgeous-looking monsters. One of them, I believe, was portrayed by the late, great Haruo Nakajima as well. Yeah. And just the way how those 2 monsters work together in the film, and it's like, oh, you can't see them on screen very often. It's like, no, when you see them, they're awesome. The sets look great with them as well. Plus, the ending of the story also ties into Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, another great Godzilla classic film which introduces Ghidorah, which is really funny. But to start off with Rodan, it starts off as suspenseful. It goes into a murder mystery that goes into a straight-up kaiju film that is awesome, and I highly recommend that. That's why it's number 8 on my list.
Now, do you prefer the Japanese version or the American version?
I have not seen the Japanese version. All I have is the English version that came on a box set with another movie that's on my list.
Okay, now, Between the two, I will probably say I like the Japanese version better, because the American version, even though that's the first version that I watch, right, the over narration can get a little bit annoying. However, they did change some things for the American version, from the Japanese version. In the American version, once you see Rodan, like once you fully see him, not when he hatches from the egg, but when you see him fully grown before he takes off and flies away, they cut back to that same area and they show the second Rodan popping up, which really was a reverse shot, you know, because honestly, it wasn't two Rodan suits; it was just one, and when it came to the Kaiju sequences, whenever you would see the suit and you would see like another Rodan, the second Rodan flying overhead, it was really a toy. They didn't really, there was no point in having two suits, you know, so they were able to do that trickery with that. But like I said, in the American version, you know, the first Rodan flies away, then out of nowhere, the second one pops out and basically follows after him. But in the Japanese version, you don't know there's a second Rodan until the actual city destruction sequence, because in the Japanese version, after that scene where Rodan flies away from his cavern and he attacks the city, you know, it just focused on that first Rodan or that one Rodan destroying the city. Then out of nowhere, they cut to the sky and there's another Rodan coming in to help the other Rodans. So at that point, it's more of a shocker that there's two Rodans, because you don't know there's two Rodans until at that point. So I think between the two, the Japanese version is just a slight bit better because of the fact that there's, you know, it was shocking to know that there were two Rodans. Just a little fun trivia right there. But yes, I'm with you on that with Rodan. It's a very, very important film to the genre. You know what I mean? Like Mothra is very, very important. It establishes Rodan as like one of the forefathers of Kaiju. When I think of forefathers, I'm thinking of Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah. You know what I mean? As far as Japanese tokusatsu. And this film did a great job to cement that. So yeah, I agree with you on that. Rodan, awesome.
Very nice.
All right, so let's go to our number 7. Is it my turn or is it your turn?
I think it's my turn, but if you want to go first, then that's okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay, just like Leslie cheated earlier, I'm going to do one of my many cheats. I regret nothing. Okay, so for number 7, this is a duo. All right, one film goes into the other. We have Frankenstein Conquers the World that goes into War of the Gargantuas. Now, the first film is a bit of a doozy. Pretty much, they find the remains of Dr. Frankenstein's creature. Yeah, follow me there. All right, they ship it to Japan, and a young boy devours part of it, and he mutates into the new Frankenstein monster. And it seems that, he's going to go crazy and destroy things. He's very feral, eating street animals, but really he's kind of a gentle soul, just kind of misunderstood. When, meanwhile, a new monster, Baragon, arrives, and he's just as vicious, eating horses, attacking people in barns. Eventually, the two monsters come one-on-one. They fight each other, and... spoilers, Frankenstein's monster, I'm calling Frankenstein, I'm not calling Frankenstein's monster, okay? Frankenstein defeats Baragon. Now, in the Japanese version, I saw this once. A friend of mine had a bootleg version of this where they actually had the complete ending where Frankenstein actually crawled out of the hole and was still alive at the end of the film, but then ran into a reoccurring monster, Odaka, a giant octopus, and actually pulls Frankenstein to his death in the ocean. Or this is a lake next to the ocean or something. Which brings us to the film War of the Gargantuas. Some of Frankenstein's remnants were left in the mountains, and it actually grew into one monster named Sanda, where the other remnants went out into the ocean and create... No, wait. Crap, did I get these two mixed? No, it may create... Gyra's the green one, right?
Yeah, Gyra's the green one.
Okay. Sorry, I just got confused there for a second. Okay, so the remnants go out to the ocean and create Gyra. And we have these two massive gargantuas, which I will admit I like the Japanese version better because they actually refer to them as Gyra and Sanda instead of Gargantua brown and Gargantua green. The green one is evil. The brown one is very friendly. But The green one has a tendency of eating people, making the brown one upset, and the two of them fight all across Japan. I'm sorry, what was you say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Where the two of them battle across Japan. Excellent suit acting, especially by, once again, the late great Haruo Nakajima playing Gaira. And from my understanding, in an interview that he said that playing Gaira was one of his favorite roles because he allowed himself to be more expressive with the suit and with the eyes.
Absolutely.
And the way how the two fought, it was like watching Kane and Undertaker and WWE just battle each other all around. The ending to War of the Gargantuas, I must say, I didn't like, where just a volcano comes out of nowhere and swallows them up. That was a little lackluster, but, the actual story going into it, I know I'm glossing over a lot of key scenes that happen in the film, but it is just a great movie to watch. It's a great duo of films to go together. And that's my number 7, Frankenstein Conquers the World and War of the Gargantuas.
Well, let me just say, War of the Gargantuas is up on my list, and it's a little bit higher, so I won't go into my thoughts of that. I'll just wait till I talk about it when it's on, once we get to that point. But I will touch on Frankenstein Conquers the World briefly a little bit. I love that film also. It's a very dark, brooding film, and out of the two, I do prefer War of the Gargantuas. I like Baragon, a very underrated monster. I wish we would have saw more of him in other films, besides Destroy All Monsters for like 2 seconds flat, literally, and of course in GMK. But my main gripe with Frankenstein Conquers the World is the fact that you don't really understand why Baragon is there. You know what I mean? I would like to think that at this point in Tokusatsu films, that it was customary to have a monster fight another monster, so that's why Baragon is there. But there's no connection in between him and Frankenstein. You know what I mean? And that's my issue with the film. Like, why is Baragon there? And I expected to have a reason or some kind of a justification behind it, but there wasn't. And that's the part that kind of like makes me feel this movie is lacking just a little bit. But the fight scene between Frankenstein and Baragon really make up for it at the end, and the story involving Frankenstein being this misunderstood creature, and it kind of like echoes the American Frankenstein movies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it was a solid take. I think when Toho got their hands on the Frankenstein character between this film and War of the Gargantuas, they did a great job with it. You know what I mean? So yes, I agree with that. But once again, I'll talk about War of the Gargantuas later on because it's higher up on my list. But my number 7 is another Gamera film. This is the only Gamera film I would recommend from the Showa era. I'm talking about 1966, Gamera versus Barugon. Not Baragon. I just talked about Barugon. There's a difference, folks. There's a difference.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So, and I won't go to a lot of detail about it, but I think this film is awesome. And it's a dark, serious story. And that's one thing I love about kaiju films. I like them to be dark and serious. Of course, I love my fun-loving, cheesy, happy-go-lucky kaiju films, but I like more so the serious ones. And this one, like I said, it's the only one from the Showa Gamera series that I would recommend. Maybe Gauss, maybe, but this one I highly recommend. Baragon is an amazing kaiju. Gamera's look in this film is like my favorite look of all the Gameras, with the exception of 96 and 99. The fact that he's not the overall good guy at this point, he's not the friend of all children, he's not responding to the whims of children yelling his name in every direction. He's both a menace and a threat. You don't really know. He's both a threat and like the savior at the same time. But it's not like he's doing it because he wants to save humanity. He's not, like I said, the overall good guy just yet. Of course, this film is awesome, like I said, but it doesn't really feature Gamera that much, which is kind of a letdown. Literally, like I said before in the other videos, he's literally in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of the film. He's, so it's not a lot of Gamera in this film, but when he does show up and takes on Baragon, it really is a fun and just an awesome film, which is like, a sign of the times in 1966 between, War of the Gargantuas, Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, They just had great monster films that year. Damagen trilogy came out that year, and Gamma vs. Baragon is no different. So yeah, that's why it's on my list. Number 7, Gamma vs. Baragon, 1966.
That is a great selection. I think I've said this to you before in the past. I have terrible memory, but if you like the film Mothra vs. Godzilla, then you'll really like Gamera vs. Baragon as well, because it almost has the same kind of themes. You know, a greedy guy wants to steal an egg and wants to corrupt nature. All of a sudden, a monster appears, and you have to reset balance. That's what Gamera is. And also, it's kind of funny. This film kind of feels like, I know you're probably going to hate me for saying this, but it kind of feels like Godzilla versus Space Godzilla a little bit. Now, let me explain.
Yeah.
Okay, let me explain.
I was going to get you on that one. You know I'm going to get you on that one, right?
Yeah. Now, you remember how you said that Gamera isn't really the hero? He's kind of like the necessary one to defeat the monster?
Yeah.
That's the same way Godzilla is in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. Space Godzilla is really the enemy. Godzilla's not really coming to Japan to defeat Space Godzilla to save humanity. He's going there to get even and restore balance. So it's kind of in that way that happens as well. And if you don't really like the idea of Space Godzilla, how about let's look at Godzilla 2014. Godzilla's not really there to save humanity. He's there to reset balance and defeat the two evil Mutos. So that's kind of a way to look at it as well.
Absolutely. And before I jump off of this, I want to talk about Baragon just a little bit more. Baragon, they really did a good job in the film showcasing how dangerous Baragon is and how much of a threat he really is. It's like the first monster that a four-legged monster, with the exception of Anguirus, that is seen rampaging through cities, destroying buildings, whatever. Now this would be seriously perfected with Shin Godzilla, because ever since Shin Godzilla, and that second form comes ashore and just crawls, and just cars are just tossing and thrown up in the air, and train cars and things of that nature. Shin Godzilla, at least the second form, Baragon kind of does the same thing, where he's like going through buildings, and even though he's not an upright monster like a Godzilla or a Hedra or a Gigan, even though he's on four legs, he does a considerable amount of damage. And like I mentioned, I love how they positioned that he was such a dangerous and threatening kaiju that it took only Gamera showing up in the nick of time to deal with him. So yes, between that, the story, the human characters, and like I mentioned, it doesn't have that silly stuff that the later Gamera Showa films would have, which is why this is the only film from the Gamera Showa film series that I would highly recommend. Great film, Gamera vs. Baragon. So
not only that, it's also very adult themed as well, where the others are clearly geared for children. You got people dying from spider bites. You got people murdering each other. You look at Baragon, he's bleeding from every orifice in several scenes, and the way how Gamera has to defeat him in the end, with his tusks, blood going all over the place. It's quite a violent film. I'll say that about this before. It did this a lot sooner than any Godzilla film did. I mean, the idea of Godzilla turning to bones at the end of Gojira is pretty much the most violent thing they did in the Godzilla franchise at that time. It's like, as soon as they did it with Baragon, you see the little difference in Godzilla films as well. So
Absolutely. So let's go on to our number 6, and I think it's my turn. So my number 6 favorite kaiju film of all time, we're going to the 70s, okay? We're going to the 70s on this one. I'm talking about 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Not to be confused with the 93 ripoff or the 2002 ripoff.
You be nice.
We're talking about the real deal here. And I don't need to go into a lot of detail about this film. If you know about this film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The introduction of Mechagodzilla, coming off the 20th anniversary of Godzilla's original film in 1954, and they did right with this 20th anniversary, even though it wasn't meant to be. But for the 20th anniversary, this was a great film. Godzilla fighting against another Godzilla, which turns out to be a robotic double from outer space. Then with the induction of King Caesar, another highly popular monster. Just an awesome film. Now, I do have a little bit of gripes with the film. I wish that King Caesar could have been better utilized in the film. Like, when you compare this film and the next film, Terror Mechagodzilla, what I praise Terror Mechagodzilla for is the fact that Titanosaurus steals the show in that film. And he's the third monster in the equation between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla. He steals the show. You know, when he finally appears, the build to his appearance and what he does makes up for it. I can't say the same for King Caesar, you know what I mean? Even though he has an awesome look and he did hold his own against Mechagodzilla for a brief period, but, you know, after Mechagodzilla overpowers him and then once Godzilla comes in, you kind of almost forget that King Caesar is even there until you know, see him in certain spots when he's getting blasted by Mechagodzilla. But with Titanosaurus, you know, he never loses his spot, in my opinion. But with 74, between the two films, I prefer 74. The action is better. At least the way they splice it throughout the film is better, in my opinion. The music, once again, it's not your typical Akira Ifukube epic music. It's like an eccentric, feel-good type of music that kind of like makes the monster scenes even better, you know, because it's not what you expect from a Godzilla film, which I think makes it more unique, you know what I mean? And it's definitely one of them, I would probably say it is probably the best film. If not Terror Mechagodzilla, it is the best film of the 70s films. I know the 70s films get a lot of crap for being cheesy and just goofy and all that good stuff, but this film is a great example why you should really give the 70s Godzilla films a second chance. And that's why it's on my list. Number 6, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, 1974.
Excellent film. Like as we said, one of the best Godzilla films, not only from the Showa series, but from all three series of Godzilla as well. Now, I am a fan of the 93 Mechagodzilla, especially his theme song that Akira Ifukube wrote, by the way. Okay, if we're going to miss any music from Akira Ifukube, I would like to hear a 70s version of Mechagodzilla's theme song, but, you know, we got it a little later on. It's okay. Excellent film. King Caesar does get lost in the shuffle. At first, he is cool, but, you know, towards the end of the film, when he's hiding behind Godzilla during all the blasting scenes, you do start to wonder why he is there. They do work together very well to rip off Mechagodzilla's head, but he does get lost in the shuffle, and Titanosaurus is a better monster than King Caesar. Love to see those two go at it, or what I would like to see is King Caesar somehow return for Terror of Mechagodzilla and make it almost a tag team fight, but not exactly, because that was one of the gripes that people had with a lot of future films in the 70s, was there was a lot of tag team matches. So, like with Gigan, you had Anguirus, King Ghidra, and Gigan. With Megalon, you had Megalon, Gigan, and Jet Jaguar. So I kind of understand why they left him out of it. I would have liked to have seen him again. And as far as I'm concerned, he didn't appear in Final Wars. I mean, I like Final Wars enough, but I didn't like him in Final Wars. But 1974 Mechagodzilla was awesome.
Absolutely. So what is your number 6? I'm dying to know.
Number 6, I'm going to cheat again, and this is not the last time I will cheat. Okay, we have, from the Heisei series, we have the Mothra trilogy. Did I just hear something break?
No, my heart, but...
it's number 6. Not that high up.
I'm dying to know. Go for it.
Okay, so, even though I've said on multiple occasions, I did not like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, not Mechagodzilla, Godzilla vs. Mothra in 92, Toho did get the courage and get the to want to give Mothra something further than what she originally was. And, you know, I'm glad for that. And these films are hokey and they are cheesy. Okay, I used to watch Power Rangers when I was in elementary school. Okay, I know what hokey and cheesy is all about. Okay, so we got the first one where Mothra, Is it the 92 version or is it not the 92 version? They're trying to say that it is and it isn't at the same time. Everyone's saying it's Mothra returning from space after destroying the comet. There's no way she could have returned that fast, so whatever. Mothra is there, and she gives birth to two new eggs. When a bad, what are they called? A bad Shobigen. I can't remember. Elias? Or are they called? The fairies. There's a bad one now. It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's interesting. But then she brings forth Death Ghidorah, an all-4 version of King Ghidorah, black and white, and this thing is monstrous and battles with Mothra, actually killing her in the film, and actually she gave birth to one Mothra. I just remember that now. And actually picking up that Mothra, throwing around blood, squirting all over the place, just very creepy. And then that Mothra becoming the brand new Leo Mothra, defeating Death Ghidra, not killing it, but defeating it, and then moving on. Then we've got the very, very silly Rebirth version, number 2, and where Mothra takes on, different forms, where she has Aqua Mothra and fights a monster named Dagara in this undersea world that's not Atlantis. I swear, it's not Atlantis. That one is at the low point, but then we get to the third one, Rebirth 3 with Grand King Ghidorah. Awesome film. I love that film from beginning to end. Grand King Ghidorah is awesome. I love the design. I love the abilities it has. I love the fact that even going back in the past, finding an early form of it to where it's not as strong, it's still more powerful than Mothra. And actually being able to defeat her, but she's able to defeat it. And then she gets webbed up and comes into a future version of herself to fight a brand new version of Grand King Ghidorah in the future. It's just a lot of time skipping as well with this film as it was with the Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. But I really enjoy these 3 films. I can skip the second one and not bat an eye, but my number 6 is the Mothra trilogy. The only thing I would change about Rebirth 3 is when they're webbing up Mothra at the end, where she goes back into the future, and they're in the prehistoric times. I wish they would have shown a dinosaur that looked like a Godzilla sword, just looking on, giving kind of like a tease that, maybe we can see a future Mothra movie where she's going to fight Godzilla again. But I guess it wasn't in the cards.
Well, my exposure to the Mothra trilogy, and I'm going to be honest, between the 3, I've only seen one. I saw the first one. I saw bits and pieces of the third one because I'm a huge King Ghidorah fan, I have not seen the second one yet.
Don't bother.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Don't bother.
That's the thing. I do like the first one, but I've only watched it maybe a handful of times, and this is just my opinion. I don't think Mothra was the right monster to choose to have a trilogy of films in Godzilla's absence. Because, of course, these films were made in response to Godzilla going away in Destroyer in 1995. And with Mothra being basically the second most popular monster behind Godzilla because of Japan having a high female population and Mothra being very high up on females list, she was the go-to monster to bring, forth to have these films. If it were up to me, I would have done Mechagodzilla. I would have loved to have seen Mechagodzilla come back and just do UN Mechagodzilla from 93 and just use that version to fight off monsters that would eventually bring back Godzilla's return. You know what I mean? It would have been nice to see this version of Mechagodzilla, go on battle missions and fight these monsters and stuff like that. So you're getting Godzilla, but then again, you're not getting it. But at the same time, it makes you wonder if and when Godzilla were to return, based off the events of, Godzilla vs. Destroyer, But I do understand that the Mothra films, because I've heard good things about the Mothra films, even though I've, like I said, only seen bits and pieces of it. So I won't comment too much about it. I can only comment it from my perspective. And even though I like Mothra, I love Mothra. I do love Mothra as a monster, But I do feel sometimes she is overexposed. I do feel like there's some movies that she shouldn't have been a part in, and she shouldn't have had a role in. But I do recognize that these films were good in Godzilla's absence, and it was good to keep the kaiju genre alive, with these films. More so with Gamera, because I think between the three, Gamera had the better Heisei film career over Godzilla and Mothra, just saying. But I can definitely understand why they're on your list. They're very colorful films. They will continue. They do a good job of continuing Mothra's legacy, and making her very relevant. Especially because with all intents and purposes, with Godzilla going away, Mothra really has some big shoes to fill. Coming in and and being directly linked to Godzilla more so than Gamera, and have her set of films that's automatically going to be compared to the Godzilla films, I'm sure was some really tough shoes to fill. So I applaud them for doing what they did with the character involved with these three films. You know what I mean? So that's my take on that.
Okay.
All right, we're halfway done. 5 more to go. So whose turn is it? Is it mine or yours?
I think it's mine.
Go for it. What's number 5?
All right, speaking of trilogies, I'm cheating again. We've got the Gamera trilogy. All 3 films, all excellent films. Are they better than the Godzilla Heisei series? Well, that's up for debate. But the Gamera trilogy is awesome. First, we start off with the Gamera Guardian of the Universe. Awesome film. This is how you redo a character. This is how you you update a character and you bring them back to a modern time and a beautiful time. Creating brand new characters that aren't completely, over-reliant on the monster, say as the children. Now, there is a character that is psychically linked to Gamera, just like how Miki Sagusa was linked to Godzilla. However, this is done in a far more, played down and far more efficient way, rather than, to scream out his name, he just, bam, appears out of nowhere. They have more build to it. And then there's the actual, first appearance of Gamera. We've got the Gauss monsters, which are far more violent and far more feral than they were in the original Gamera vs. Gauss, which there's not a problem with that Gauss, but these things are just eating dogs everywhere they go. They're just killing people. The way how they have to capture them, they actually get captured in a very awesome way as well inside this massive baseball dome. And then we get to see Gamera for the first time. At first, everyone thinks he's a floating island out in the middle of the ocean. Then he actually comes up just looking awesome. They update all the effects with him, all of his fire attacks, all his flying abilities, just looking awesome. Then we move on to Gamera Attack of Legion, or Advent of Legion, whichever it is. I've heard multiple, titles for this film. Once again, stepping forward with Gamera, just looking awesome, giving him brand new abilities like that mana explosion attack that he has at the end of the film. Seeing the monster Legion off the heels of Destroya, just the way how she or it just is, and all the explosions, all the abilities that it has as well. Awesome film. Then we rounded off with Iris, which unfortunately is the weakest of the 3 films, but not for it not trying. It did try. However, they kind of have this weird thing where they kind of start to focus back on the children aspect of it, which, it's not really that bad of a thing until the girl actually, merges with Iris, and then Iris becomes this gigantic, awesome-looking, anime-looking monster, and then we see Gamera have to battle it. Gamera looking more and more awesome in these films as well, always updating the look of them, just like they do with Godzilla and the Heisei films as well. Gamera just looking more and more awesome in this. They have outstanding fight sequences, especially when Gamera battles Iris out in midair, above Japan as well. Just awesome stuff. Awesome ending. Kind of a tease of an ending, though, especially with what we got after it. With all the Gausses, when really that's not what happened in the next film. They kind of did, but kind of didn't. Settle a bet, Leslie. Is Gamera the Brave a sequel to the Gamera trilogy, or is it they trying to do something different?
No, this basically the Heisei films were like just their own story within their own. Kind of like how the Dark Knight trilogy doesn't have anything to do with Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman. It's kind of that type of deal.
Okay.
The Gamera and Gamera the Brave has nothing to do with the Heisei. Because in that film, in the beginning, Gamera, or at least a different looking version of Gamera, kind of like a more prehistoric version of Gamera, that takes place back in 1973, and then
that's right, yeah.
Then it jumps to the modern day where the baby Gamera goes up into Toto and fights Zetas or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that film had nothing to do with Gamera's Heisei films.
Okay, because I remember seeing Gamera fighting a bunch of Gausses in that film. It's like, oh, it's the same thing, but or not just say it's the same thing. I just said it, didn't I?
Well, that's the thing. In Gamera the Brave, he fights like maybe 3 of them, but but at the end of the Heisei films, there were like hundreds of them. So it was basically done like the Dark Knight Rises. At the end of Dark Knight Rises, where you left to, there's not really a right or wrong answer. You left wondering what really happened. Like I said, in Dark Knight Rises, you're wondering, did old boy become the new Batman? Did Alfred really see Bruce Wayne right there? I mean, did all these things happen? So it didn't end on a definitive note. In Gamera's case, you don't know what happened, because after the Gauss are shown descend on the city where Gamera is, and after Gamera, goes through that battle with Iris and his daggone arm is chopped off and he roars in defiance, and then the screen flames up and then blacks out. Once again, it just leaves you open to interpretation. What happens? Does Gamera go up and fight all the Gausses? Does he win? Does he die? It just left up to your imagination. And honestly, I love how I love cliffhanger endings. I don't like them for every film, but I love cliffhanger endings when it's needed. And I think for that type of story, or at least for that type of story arc, that was needed. And I think it's great. I really do.
Great.
Now, let's see. This is number 5, right? So let me go into my number 5. And this was one of your honorable mentions that kind of like had me feeling some type of way, but I have to mention this. My number 5 is, of course, 1967's King Kong Escapes.
That's going to be on your list.
Yeah, my favorite King Kong film of all time. Of course, if you know me and you know my channel, if you've seen my videos in the past, this should not be much of a surprise to anyone, so I won't go into a lot of detail about it, and I'll just say I understand the problems that the film has. The idea of this madman, this evil scientist type of madman, he comes across this element, this radioactive element, and what does he do? He makes a giant mechanical monkey gorilla to dig it out, but then realizes, hey, you know what? I'll just get the real thing and then dig it out. It's just, I understand. And also, like I said, the problems that the film has, I know that the King Kong suit isn't exactly the best suit in the world, but I don't care. This film is just so much fun. I watched it when I was little, and it has not gotten old, or it hasn't lost its appeal with me over time. To me, it's gotten better. Even with more King Kong films that has came out, like King Kong 2005 or Kong Skull Island, I still view King Kong Escapes as the number 1. Maybe because of the fact that the Godzilla production team did this film, and the fact that Hiro Nakajima was playing King Kong, maybe that has a lot to do with it. And I'm just these type of films, at least these type of production qualities, even though they're cheesy, resonates a lot with me, and I find them fun and fascinating. But through it all, if you're looking for a fun film, take all the bad problems of the film out of the equation. The King Kong suit looking horrible, the over-the-top antics of Doctor Who, and just look at it as a film from beginning to end. It has great monster action. It has a great story. The characters are okay. We're not expecting Oscar winners, people, okay? So if you're looking at it as a solid film, an entertaining, fun film, if you enjoyed Godzilla vs. Monster Zero around this time, or Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster, or some of Godzilla, if you love those type of films and what they offer, then there's be no reason why you don't love King Kong Escape. So once again, yes, that is why it's on my list. Number 5, my favorite King Kong film of all time, and why it's an essential part of my top 10, 1967's King Kong Escape. So what is your number 5, my man?
Oh, I already told you, Gamera trilogy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My bad. All right.
That's all right. Now, King Kong Escapes, that is It's an excellent film. Does it have problems? You know, it's a fun thing to say. Every film has problems. No movie is perfect, okay? So, but as far as the story goes, it's great. The villain is a villain. You don't have to worry about whether, you know, he's a fallen hero or you have to worry about, you know, oh, he's a tragic character. He's a dynamic character that's a mass victim of circumstance. He's a straight-up bad guy doing a straight-up bad thing, and we have straight-up good people beating a straight-up bad guy. Now, it does take a lot of things from, say, you know, the James Bond franchise. You know, evil scientists, people having gadgets and working alongside each other to beat an evil scientist. But, you know, Kong in the film, yes, the suit they use for it is a bit jarring, especially when you look at the 62 Kong suit, okay? But, you know, it's still very well done as well. And besides, it has very expressive eyes. We have the teeth it's set up. You know, it almost has like a missing link look to it. It's like, oh, it's not just some giant gorilla or a giant monkey. It actually feels like what they intended for Kong in the original films was that he's a missing link between, you know, humans and nature. You know, he's not just a straight-up gorilla, and I like that idea. You know, especially because mostly apes don't have all sharp fangs, so he feels like he's something different as well. Plus, to battle a mechanical version of himself, I always like the idea in films where our hero has to fight a dark duplicate of themselves. You know, whether it's Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla or you know, Superman versus Zod, or in this case, King Kong versus McKinney Kong, or Batra versus Mothra, even though it could have been done a little better, but I love that storyline where our hero fights a dark version of themselves.
Cool. That's great. Like I said, King Kong Escapes is such an awesome film, at least to me. You know, I mean, it's loads of fun. Now, is it the best kaiju film of all time? Not really. But still, for me, it's just an amazing film. I mean, I can point out the flaws and the issues and the inconsistencies that it has, but to me, I look at it overall, my enjoyment of the film, and I have tons and tons of enjoyment when I watch King Kong Escapes. So let's go into the number 4, and I think it's my turn now. My number 4 comes from 1964. And no, I'm not talking about Gojira, the space monster. And no, I'm not talking about what you think I'm going to talk about. We'll get to that later. I'm talking about 1964's Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Good old Gojira, the three-headed monster.
Yeah, excellent film. And this was made during a time where this was like the pinnacle of Japanese science fiction monster films, you know, and I'm a huge King Ghidorah fan, you know that. So the idea of them bringing in King Ghidorah, this monster that's so powerful that not even one monster can stand up to it. So you have Godzilla coming back, Rodan coming back, Mothra coming back, and you know, you have the turmoil between Godzilla and Rodan. Then you have King Ghidorah being unleashed. Then you have Mothra coming in to try and see if she can do anything, trying to persuade Rodan and Godzilla to help her. Then they don't. Then she fights King Ghidorah. Then Rodan and Godzilla join the fray, and of course, it does take a while for things to get going. You know what I mean? The story involving, you know, the princess who thinks she's a Martian that basically has all these premonitions that all these bad things involving these monsters going to happen. It's kind of cheesy a little bit, you know, because it's like one of the early steps of them involving aliens, or at least an alien creature, you know, which they would, you know, use this concept over and over and over again in the Showa period. This was like the early signs that they were going into that direction. But King Ghidorah, awesome villain, you know, is probably the most popular Godzilla villain out there. Of course, you can make a case for Gigan, Hedra, Mechagodzilla, you know what I mean? But King Ghidorah is the yang to Godzilla's yin. You know, he's the Joker to Godzilla's Batman, in my opinion. And once again, love Rodan in this film, love the Godzilla suit in this film. This film is just excellent all the way around, you know. I love this one more so than the next film, Monster Zero, because at least with Monster Zero, you know, Godzilla and Rodan are controlled. In this film, all these things are randomly happen all at the same time. Rodan coming back, Godzilla coming back, then a monster is more powerful and deadlier than the two of them combined. King Ghidorah comes in. So all these elements present a great element of surprise in the film, which makes the film an excellent, excellent film. That's why I had to have it on my list. Number 4, Ghidorah, three-headed monster.
It's a great choice.
Thank you.
The only thing that I would have changed about Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, this is a very small change. I would have had Ghidorah arrive sooner, and I would have had him have a one-on-one with Godzilla, then a one-on-one with Rodan. Keep him as brief and as short as possible, and then Godzilla and Rodan continue their battle, and Mothra be the one to bring them together to fight Ghidorah. So one teeny tiny little change I would have had to it, but what they did give us was awesome. Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster is another one of the best in the Showa series. Now, is it better than Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla? It's a strong contender, to be honest. But Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, excellent. Plus, the way how it gives kind of a little tease into the glimpse of the future for the Godzilla Showa films, and where they eventually show up as with Destroy All Monsters. But I guess they weren't thinking that far ahead at this point. But, it was a great stepping point towards that.
Absolutely. And I'd like to have a sidebar to your point about King Ghidorah showing up sooner and then fighting Godzilla and Rodan individually. Now, the first part, I do agree with you on that. King Ghidorah could have been shown a little bit sooner. But I think that the story leading up to it with Godzilla and Rodan coming back and them fighting and stuff like that is really good, that you're not really saying, okay, when is this King Ghidorah going to show up? You know what I mean? The story is really, really good where you're not really, begging for it because the story is that good. Now, if you look at the fight scene or how the fight scene was choreographed at the end, King Ghidorah kind of does fight Rodan and Godzilla individually. Remember when Godzilla is fighting King Ghidorah and King Ghidorah just throws him into that bridge, That shows right there that Godzilla couldn't handle King Ghidorah alone. Then you go to the next scene when Rodan gets chased by King Ghidorah in the air, and they both collide, and they come crashing down into Earth, and Rodan's hiding behind these set of rocks, because King Ghidorah's firing his gravity beams on him. So obviously Rodan couldn't deal with King Ghidorah on his own at that particular time either. At that point, that's when they all decided to just let's attack all at the same time. Godzilla attacks their heads, Rodan attacks from the sky, Mothra attacks the tails to keep King Ghidorah grounded. So in a way, we kind of got that. Now I agree, maybe we could have gotten more of it, but I think for what they did, I think it was proper and suitable considering how big of a threat King Ghidorah was and how not really overloaded with the monster action, which is something that I wish that Monster Zero could have done, but that's another story for another time.
I didn't even think of it that way, and I retract what I just said. I didn't even think of it the way how you just explained it, because you're absolutely right with the way how you did explain it, so I retract what I said.
No, I mean, it's okay because, that's your opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I never said that you were wrong. I was just saying. I was just saying that if you look at the film for what it was, we basically got what you asked for. But I'm just saying that I agree with you that maybe we could have gotten more of seeing King Ghidorah fight Godzilla alone. We could have gotten more of King Ghidorah fighting Rodan. Now, of course, if we would have gotten that, maybe we would have drug along the fight a little bit longer than what it should have. Maybe because in a situation like this, you don't want it to overstay its welcome. You know what I mean?
You're right.
So I think in that perspective, I think they did the right thing for what they did. But of course, having a little bit here and there is never a bad thing. It's never a bad thing.
You're right. I got you.
So what's your number 4, sir?
My number 4. Now, this is a bit of an oddity. It doesn't have anything to do with Toho, but it is a kaiju film. It comes from Europe, and this is the film called Gorgo.
Okay.
Now, I'm a huge fan. Oh, I'm sorry, what now?
I said, okay. I like Gorgo.
See, I'm a huge fan of the film son of Godzilla. Okay, as cheesy as that might sound, there's nothing wrong with cheese. I like cheese. Okay, you got your ricotta cheese, you got your American cheese, you got some Munster cheese, you got some, provolone. There's nothing wrong with cheese. I like cheese. Okay, you can just as long as you don't put too much cheese. You got mac and cheese as well. Okay, you can't go wrong with mac and cheese. Just as long as you don't overdo it. Okay, but Gorgo, pretty much, there's a island, fishing place, and they're running out of food because there's a massive monster eating all their food, and they capture it. It is this monster. However, it's not too big. Come to find out, what they caught was actually a baby, and they bring the baby to London to put on a show at a circus, when all of a sudden Mama comes looking for the baby, and she starts destroying everything in her path in London. Big Ben is destroyed. London Bridge is falling down. Gorgo is an awesome film. It's just like a Godzilla film. All the miniatures they use, the acting is actually really good. The kid actor isn't as grating as some would lead you to believe. The human acting, yes, they do speak in that kind of in that British accent, but it's not really like what's the word I'm gonna use? That Cockney accent that most people like to put on as like a fake British accent. Everyone speaks in a very normal manner, and it's very easy to understand as well. And plus, the way how Gorgo is, especially the mother, and her massive roar, and the way how she doesn't need to have a bunch of little gimmick powers to make her that much more powerful. She's already huge and dominant as well. Just the way how the film is shot, the color, especially towards the end when she's destroying the city and everything's bathed in like a reddish glow, like it's fire everywhere. Just looks just like something right out of like Dante's Inferno. It's like the devil's attacking the city. But then she gets her baby back, and they retreat off into the ocean, kind of like at the end of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla '93.
Yeah.
And has a very happy ending. And Gorgo is a very underrated, gem of a kaiju film.
I agree with that.
Don't remake it. Leave it alone.
You know what? I agree with that. I definitely agree with Gorgo being an underrated film. In comparison to other kaiju films, Gorgo doesn't get talked about that much. And that's a shame, because Gorgo really is a good film. And the fact that, because, it's only really one monster suit in the film, kind of like how I mentioned earlier with Rodan. It's not really like a large mama Gorgo suit and a baby Gorgo suit. They basically use the same suit. They just use special effects trickery to make you think they were actually two suits, but it really wasn't. But that's beside the point. Gorgo.
One other thing, they actually use like massive puppets, and they actually use a lot of larger animatronics as well to show off Gorgo as well, rather than just creating a gigantic suit and having it on sticks and wires. They actually create like a mechanized suit almost for it. It looks like fantastic in the film, especially the underwater scene where the head rises from the ocean, as well with the blood red eyes. It's like they're glowing, like there's lights behind them as well. And when they're shipping Gorgo throughout the streets of London as well. Just other great things about it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but also one of the best things about the film to me is when they realize what the scientists say to them, because early on they find Gorgo, they bring him back, and of course everybody's already astounded about. I think the baby was like 65 feet tall or 70 feet tall, something like that. Of course,
it was about that, yeah.
Yeah, so of course he was this giant monster. Of course everybody's astounded by it. Then once the people that got Gorgo from his sea lair and brought him to humanity. Once the scientists tell him, like, hey, you realize, of course, what you got is a baby, right? Then at that point, you like, oh man. So that twist of knowing that he wasn't the only Gorgo out there, and then a bigger one, a more larger, gigantic mama version comes in and reclaims him. That was a very, very cool twist, because you didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? You thought maybe that baby Gorgo was going to, either escape and start trashing London. You didn't think there was an actually larger, more powerful, ferocious version out there that would come and do what he or she did. And once again, the fact that in this film, there's not really any villains. You know, the people that abducted Gorgo and brought him back, at least the baby version, they didn't know, you know, they didn't have any ill will. They just saw an opportunity to make some money to exploit this giant monster. And that's what, you know, that's what they did. And the mama Gorgo that comes in to rescue his son or her son, she's trashing the city because she want to make sure that his or her baby is okay. So you can't really fault Gorgo either. So really, you know, in the end, you know, Gorgo reclaims, you know, its offspring. And of course, I guess the guys who abducted him see the error of their ways, even though they have a burning city behind them as evidence of that. You know what I mean? So, but yes, I love Gorgo. If nothing else, for that twist when you realize there's actually a bigger one that will come and do what it did. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Gorgo, highly underrated film, and one really you should go out your way and try to watch. Absolutely.
Indeed.
All right, so that's your number 4. So, why don't you go to your? Is it your turn to go with number 3, right?
No, I think it's your turn.
It's my turn.
I think so. Yeah.
Really? Because I talked about Ghidorah 3-headed monster, and then you talked about.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, it is my turn. Okay. Yep. My turn.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Well, to make up from earlier, for number 3, I have GMK, Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, All Monsters Attack.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because Sandra's knocked out sleep right now, and she would be going crazy right now. But go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Okay, just to let y'all know, this isn't in response to Sandra being upset. I really did have this on my list right in front of me, and it was kind of funny when Leslie brought it up earlier. So, but you know, I'm just bringing it up now because it is my number 3. So, as he was saying earlier, Godzilla is reanimated through the souls of the dead soldiers from the Pacific conflict, and he is a complete demon of destruction. You know, the blank white eyes and just anger and just the fury behind him as he's moving towards the city and just ripping things limb from limb. The way how he battles with Baragon in that first scene. For any other scene in the film, you just watch that scene where he fights Baragon. First you have the moment where it seems like they're creating a recreation shot from the original 1954 film. And then he battles Baragon in that huge valley, and just the way he bats him around with his tail. Then when he uses atomic breath to flat out obliterate him. We've never seen that in the film that I can remember. He just flat out obliterates a monster with his atomic breath. And then we move on to later in the film where they're using new advanced technology to try to bring down Godzilla and just unable to do so. And eventually we start to learn about the other spirit animals, that this was all foretold that one day this monster of destruction, you know, Godzilla would arrive to destroy humanity, and the 3 guardian monsters would come. It's a very spiritual and a very beautiful, you know, feeling to it. It's also with the music behind it as well. And just when Mothra battles with Godzilla, you know, it's awesome. Then we get Ghidorah, which I'm with Leslie, was a letdown. Ghidorah is normally known as the villain, which I didn't really have a problem with him swapping roles, but just the way how Ghidorah looks in this film, it looks like most of him isn't meant to move or be able to move. It's like the heads were there, but it's like the feet didn't feel like they were moving around. The tails didn't really seem to do a purpose. But then when he forms with Mothra and becomes King Ghidorah, it's just the fight just keeps going on, but it just doesn't matter. Godzilla is still foretold to destroy these other monsters as well, but we have a happy ending, or do we, when Godzilla explodes from a very stupid way, you know, that little exposed area on his arm.
Yeah.
And then we have his heart still beating, being symbolism. Either Godzilla's going to return or the threat of disaster and destruction is never truly dead. You be the judge, but GMK, excellent film. Another one of the best Godzilla films. I know it's on my top 10 list. I know it's on your top 10 list of Kaiju films and Godzilla films. GMK, give it a watch. It is awesome. The human characters are awesome. The music is just, you can sleep to that music. It's awesome. Just the first entrance of Godzilla, where he comes out of the harbor, and you see him matched up against the city. It's like, oh my goodness, he's really there. He's really destroying stuff. Just beautiful movie.
And then touch on one more thing before we move on here. There's another thing I don't really like about this film, and you just said it just now, was him exploding at the end. I have to admit, his demise or how he dies is kind of lame to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that was lame. I agree.
I just think after everything that he went through, from rampaging his way across Japan, basically decimating the military, obliterating Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Baragon without even breaking a sweat, you know what I mean? After everything he went through, and the fact that we couldn't see him get his comeuppance or what he had coming to him, I thought was a letdown, because he died, or he blew up, but he did it off screen. I wish that we could have saw that. I wish that we could have saw this evil version of Godzilla basically had karma coming back to him, you know, and just him being so brutal, but yet, or him being so evil and so destructive was basically his own undoing in a way. But I wish that we could have saw that at the end. But we didn't. But still, it doesn't take away from the fact that once, like you said, it's one of the best Godzilla films out there. And to me, like I said, it's really the best part of the Millennium series. It's the high point of the Millennium series. If anybody would have asked me, okay, the Millennium series, what's the best part about it? GMK would be my answer all day long. So yeah, so I'm definitely with you on that. Once again, is number 9 on my list. Is number 3 on yours. So, yeah, still. Obviously, it's evident that this film is an amazing film. Don't take our word for it. Watch it, and you'll understand. But my number 3, and I'm going back to the 70s on this one, and I'm not ashamed to admit to it, because this film has so much cheese in it that, you know, it will make Philadelphia Cream Cheese Factory go out of business.
Nothing wrong with cheese. Let the cheese roll.
Well, in that case, let's go with 1972's Godzilla vs. Gigan.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that movie. I love it.
I love that. I love the movie. I love the movie too. There's so much to love, and I'll be brief here in my commentary about it.
Don't be brief. Talk all night if you want to.
It's just a great film, you know, despite the issues of
cockroaches,
alien cockroaches, the over-reliance of stock footage, you know, monsters actually talking, or at least in Japanese version, having comic book balloons to decipher their language. All that, and
what do you want?
Yeah, and all that, you know, with the old now, you know, storyline of aliens coming in and using monsters to take over the world. But you know what? It doesn't feel old in this film. Godzilla, his look is awesome, even though the suit has seen better days. You know, his ally is the first monster he ever fought in Anguirus, which this film has cemented, which I mentioned in my couple of previous videos. This film actually cements to me of Anguirus being his right-hand man, his do-or-die kaiju. You know what I mean? More so than Rodan. You know, the introduction of Gigan, another highly popular monster, which I wish we could have seen more films in, you know what I mean?
Indeed.
And of course, King Ghidorah. God love King Ghidorah, you know, just the whole fight scene. And this fight scene, I maintain to this day, is the best fight scene in a kaiju film. I'm sure you may disagree, but to me, you know, and there have been great fight scenes out there. King Kong versus Godzilla. Godzilla versus Titanosaurus and Mechagodzilla, you know, together. Godzilla versus Hedra. You know, Water Gargantuas. That fight is awesome. But to me, this film involving these 4 monsters had the best kaiju fight scene ever. And unfortunately for me, and I don't know about you, but this film, with it being one of my favorites, also is more favorite because of a sentimental value. Because of Haruo Nakajima passing away this year, and the fact that this was the last film that he ever donned the Godzilla costume. This is the last film he was Godzilla in, and it's just more. I have more of attachment to this film now because of his passing, unfortunately, and I get a newfound respect for this film, which is even more than what I had for it before. But yes, despite the issues, despite the problems, despite the overloads of cheese in it, this really is a solid Godzilla film entry from beginning to end. So yes, that's why it's on my list. Number 3, Godzilla vs. Gigan.
You mean number 2? Oh, never mind. Yeah, 3.
Yeah, 3.
Okay, first off, Nakajima-san, the first mayor of Suplex City, that's a wrestling reference if you guys don't know what that is. Remember when he suplexed Ghidra 3 times? That was awesome.
It sure was.
Okay, now, I was really young when I saw this movie, and I was flipping out at one certain scene in the film, and that was the scene when it wasn't just that his arm got sliced open and blood started going all over the place. It was when he ran into the Godzilla Tower, something that I want to see as a Rick exclusive. If they ever do a 72, 30-centimeter Godzilla, is a replica of the Godzilla Tower. When the Godzilla Tower is just wailing on Godzilla and just beaming him down, and they're playing that extremely somber music. It was killing me. Like, it's like you just want to jump in the screen and just, block the blast hitting Godzilla yourself. It's just that music in the scene was just killing me. But he gets all better and just starts whomping them. But just that scene killed me at first. Okay, the cockroach monsters. Come on. We've seen sillier things in the past. We've got pieces of gold, when you superheat them, they become gorgeous Japanese women. Okay, we've seen sillier alien beings in the past. Okay, and we've seen ones with Sultan shoes as well for Planet X. Okay, so come on, we can. There's nothing wrong with cheese. Okay, let the cheese flow. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Godzilla vs. Gigan. I know people are probably sick of hearing me say this. That's another one of the best Godzilla films from the Showa series. Now, overall, I'm not sure from all 3 series. It's definitely up there, if not GMK, the best from Millennium series. I can see the Showa, the Gigan being better than all the Showa movies as well. Oh boy, I'm sure I made some enemies there. Yeah, Godzilla vs. Gigan is awesome. Plus, it has the last appearance of the 67 Son of Godzilla suit. I know they used it in stock footage for Godzilla's Revenge, and then they put it in an Ultraman costume episode. But, I really like the 67 suit. They used that for all the water scenes. And as far as the 68 through 72 suit, pretty much falling apart, well, you gotta remember, that thing went through the ringer, so it was bound to fall apart at one point. But, just look at the Heisei suits, by Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. They were holding together with glue and duct tape, so.
Yeah.
But yes, Godzilla vs. Gigan, fun movie. Let the cheese flow. Nothing wrong with the cheese.
Absolutely. So now let's go to our number 2, and now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. I think it's my turn now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 2, my second favorite kaiju film of all time. And we talked about this film earlier on, but we're going to talk about it again. 1966, War of the Gargantuas.
Oh, yes.
Yes, my second favorite kaiju film of all time. I mean, what is there not to like about this film? You know what I mean? And we already talked about it earlier, but, I will be brief and try to skim over some things so we won't go into a lot of the same things we talked about earlier, but...
Yeah, I blabbered on during that, sorry.
Oh, no. You gave some valid points. It wasn't really blabbering. You really gave some valid points. I don't want to really echo the same thing because we feel kind of the same way. But if you want to see an awesome movie with awesome special effects and awesome music, watch this movie. If you want to see a movie that has a great antagonistic, awesome villain, watch this movie. If you want to see a movie that has allegory, and you want to see a film that was really one of the pinnacles of kaiju film excellence around this time, watch this movie. You know what I mean? And here's the thing about War of the Gargantuas, and maybe you can back me up on this. And of course, in the Japanese version, it is revealed that Gaara is really a watery clone of Sanda. Now, based on my research on this film and based on how I watched the film, and of course, in the American version, they refer to the Gargantuas, at least Sanda and Gaara, as Gargantuas because they felt like Sanda and Gaara didn't really look anything like the original Frankenstein for people to know the difference. So, maybe I'm wrong, but there's nothing in at least the American version that definitively ties Frankenstein Conquers the World to War of the Gargantuas, since War of the Gargantuas is a sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World. There's nothing, I mean, there are certain vague references, but there's nothing that says, okay, Sandra was the original Frankenstein, or Guy was the original Frankenstein. Maybe you can help me out on that. But in my opinion, based on what I've seen and what I've read, I just think that this was basically Toho's separate take on the Frankenstein character. You know, I think it was just a separate thing in like almost a different separate universe in a way. But they wanted you to believe that the first film had something to do with it so you won't be completely lost. But at the same time, they weren't really tying it together where it actually made sense. So you really come away from it confused with involving the connection between the two films. Maybe you can speak about that a little bit, because that's what I got from it.
Well, see, here's the thing. In the United States, you know, we have a set schedule of films. You know, in 1989, we got Batman. Then in 1990, whatever, we got Batman Returns. In 1990, whatever again, we got Forever. Everything came in a line. When it came to Japanese films, you know, especially, you know, kaiju films from Toho or whatever, they didn't come out in a set schedule. We didn't get Gojira. Then goes right into Raids again, and then goes right into King Kong versus Godzilla. You know, it didn't come out in a set schedule like they would for films here in our country. You know, things came out at a very scattered time. Plus, there was very little information back then on what time these films came out and when to view them. Plus, a lot of these films were shown on television as well, and not in the same order as well. So everything was kind of, you know, scatterbrained. So as far as what you're saying is, I remember watching the U.S. version of it, and they tried to, you know, touch up on it a little bit, but they didn't really, like with the Gargantuas, when they were fighting, we have Gargantua Brown fighting Gargantua Green, and they're traveling across. They didn't go into, you know, naming them specifically. They didn't really get into as much as the Frankenstein Conquers the World thing. They kind of showed a scene where they had like the cells of the Frankenstein monster that they found in the woods, like near where he fought Baragon, but that's pretty much it. They didn't really go into very much of Frankenstein Conquers the World being the predecessor to War of the Gargantuas.
Right.
But in that case, it doesn't really matter. If you're watching the U.S. version of it, you know, they don't really bring it up, so you don't really need to watch Frankenstein Conquers the World. In fact, you don't really need to watch Frankenstein Conquers the World in the first place, because this film is very different completely than Frankenstein Conquers the World. So you don't really need to. It's just a fun little thing. If you know that the one is before the other, it's fun to see them and see where it goes for the sequel, but you don't absolutely need to. It's not like watching Batman Returns and not seeing Batman and be like, gee, I wonder why it's this, that, and the other. You know, you see what I mean?
Yeah. So that's my take on it. I think it was just Toho's take, just another different take, but try to maintain some kind of like a familiar territory, so you won't get too lost, but the end result leaves you even more confused. But even still, at the end of the day, they're both still highly entertaining films, but I think War of the Gargantuas is the more superior of the two. Of course, Gyra, you know, really, he's the one that kind of carries the movie, and he's such just a fascinating and evil, sadistic villain, and, you know, him being a bloodthirsty, evil villain, and the military attempts to try to destroy him or try to keep him at bay from the people, you know, that is a really, really not touching, but it's really an exciting story that in a way you kind of forget there's actually two in the film, and when finally Sandra reveals himself, you're like, oh, okay. And then once Sandra realizes how evil Gyra really is, and they have that first, you know, little brief battle, even afterwards, when they come across each other again, you would think that Sandra would be wanting to throw down again, but at that point, he's trying to reason with Gyra. He's trying to calm him down. He's trying to say, hey, dude, let's not do this. You know, go about your business, you know, whatever. But Gyra doesn't listen to reason. He doesn't listen to logic. You know, all Gyra sees is red. And what I love about the Gargantuas is the fact that you see yourself, or at least I know I've seen myself in both roles of the Gargantuas. In Gyra's case, I have been my own worst enemy. I have not wanted to listen to reason to some people. I have been selfish. I have been, in a way, bloodthirsty, not in a literal sense, but I have been bloodthirsty where I only cared about myself and only want to do things that were right for myself. In Sandra's case, I have tried to help those that I saw was in trouble but didn't really need my help or didn't want my help. And I had to sacrifice myself to try and help them. So I saw myself in Sanda and both Sanda and Gaara. But at that turning point when Gaara pushes Sanda into that building after Sanda has tried to reason with him and try to deal with him and try to talk to, at least not talk to him, but try to just communicate with him and let him know, like, look, just calm down. That look when he gets knocked down and he looks up at Gaara, that look that says, okay, you pushed too far. You pushed the wrong guy, or in this case, the wrong Gargantua, and they just tear into each other. And just one of the best fight scenes ever, especially in a city setting where they're basically just spearing each other through buildings and choking each other, and it's awesome. And of course, the volcano at the end, yeah, I can understand how that can be kind of like, okay, that kind of came out of nowhere, but considering what both Gargantuas represented, one couldn't live, because if Sanda lived, that would have left more possibilities for Gaara to show up. If Gaara would have lived, of course, we can't have a murderous, rampaging monster running around, so they both had to die. And I think at that point, when Sanda and Gaara go into the volcano, I think Sanda realizes that he has to die with Gaara in order for everything to be okay. So yes, just a beautiful monster movie, and it can be weird to a certain extent, but overall, the story, music, special effects, the allegory, the messages and meaning behind it, the characterization behind both Gargantuas, just an awesome film, a near perfect kaiju film, which is why it's on my list. And number 2, 1966, Water Gargantuas.
And just to add on to that, it isn't just Nakajima-san's acting through his eyes and his facial. Also, the actor who portrayed Sanda as well. You see like little subtle looks on their face, the way how they are trying to plead with each other, or they're trying to be angry with each other. It's just all the different physical acting. They don't even have to say words to each other, and you just see the gambit of emotions that they have as well. And if you cut all the human parts out and you just have the bare minimum and you just see the monsters, you can tell what the story is, just the facial expressions that they have. It's very fascinating as well in that case.
Absolutely. So what is your number 2? We're getting down to it. We're getting to it.
All right, number 2. Oh, you are not going to like this, or you might like this. We'll see what happens. It is actually a tie. The number 1 and number 2 are ties between films. Actually, no, not just number 2 is. So, we have King Kong, the 30s from RKO Pictures. We have the 70s, directed by Dino De Laurentiis, and we have the 05 Peter Jackson epic.
Okay.
All 3 hours of it. Now, I love the first version of it because of the time and era that the movie came out and the way how the effects were done and all the practical effects as well as the stop motion and plus the acting of the characters, plus that whole Beauty and the Beast storyline with King Kong. It's an excellent film. Now, I really enjoy the 70s version of it because it is updated with more suitmation rather than stop motion. I like stop motion, don't get me wrong, but suitmation, I'm a Godzilla fan. I love the way how they portray King Kong in the 70s version, plus with the updated visuals, and just everything just felt updated. But if you haven't seen any of those films, and you're looking to get into King Kong, and if for some reason you don't want to see Kong Skull Island, I recommend that movie, by the way. The Peter Jackson epic King Kong, especially the extended version of it, with everything restored in it and the complete story there, it's a very well crafted story, and it's who's really the monster in this, man or Kong? Who are we to say one cannot love the other? Why can't this one thing, have good qualities? Why does it have to be straight up monster? Why does it have to be property and to be put on as a circus act? Why are we allowed to invade their land and steal Kong and, parade him around? Why are we allowing ourselves to get upset when he breaks free? Yes, he's killing people. We kind of put ourselves into that. And also taking it, imagine you go to the zoo and say like a silverback gorilla gets free and is running around. Yes, you want to stop it, but you don't hate the creature. You don't hate the animal. You feel bad for it. And that's this film does very well. Even with CG, you see all the facial expressions. Andy Serkis did outstanding work as King Kong in this film. Beautiful films. I recommend watching all three of those films. I mean, King Kong Escapes is awesome as well, don't get me wrong, but to see how Kong got his very humble beginnings to where he gets to in 2005, and then see where he's going in the later films, like Skull Island, like Kong versus Godzilla, or Godzilla vs. Kong, I forget what the title is of it, but that's my number two, those three films.
And to touch briefly on the Kong films, I'm a huge King Kong fan, you know what I mean? And of course, like I mentioned earlier, my favorite, or my top favorite, is King Kong Escapes, but I do recognize what those three films offered. Now, let's start with 33, an amazing film, and considering how it was made in the 1930s, you have to wonder how in the world they were able to pull it off. But they did, you know what I mean? That was just an amazing feat of filmmaking, especially at that time in the 30s. And without this film, you know, I'm sure we would have got something, but this film really did play a huge part in the creation of Godzilla. So if nothing else, besides it being a great monster film, or at least one of the greatest pieces of film in the history of films, you know, it earns a lot of great designations. Now 76, I have to say that between the three, I prefer 76, even though it doesn't have any monsters except for a giant snake that looked lame. But to me, what's the selling point for that film, besides the fact the suit looks good? Kong looks better in 76, in my opinion, than 05 and 33, is the fact that you really feel for Kong in that film. You really feel for the love story. In 33, the girl spent like 90% of the time screaming and horrified by Kong, that you don't really get the sense that, of course, you knew that Kong cared for the girl, but you didn't really feel that it was done in return. With 76, you really know that the girl cared for Kong, if not as much, but just enough that you bought into the love story. Now with 05, I think what they did was they combined elements of both the 33 and 76 and created that film, because that film had great monster action, great dinosaur action that you saw in the 30s, but it had the great love story that you saw in the 70s. So yes, I think 2005 is a combination of both films, but I have to say, if I had to pick a favorite out of those three, it's 76, but all three of those films are great. I know between the three, 76 is the one that gets picked on a lot, and I understand that.
Unfairly, by the way.
Unfairly, yes, and I understand there are better, or at least perceived better, King Kong films that offered, you know, more when it comes to action or dinosaur action. But look at the story. Look at the story behind King Kong. Him falling in love with the girl, which proves to be his ultimate downfall. If you look at it from that standpoint, honestly, between the three, 76 probably is the most powerful love story between the three. But either way, all three of those films are awesome. Yes, they are, and I highly agree with you on that. And that's your number two, which means it's time for you to go into your number one, and I'm on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what the heck that is. So without further ado, sir, what is your number one kaiju film of all time, or at least kaiju film that's on this list?
Okay, so once again, this is my final cheat. It's the last one on the list. It is the 1954 classic Gojira, Godzilla 1984/1985. Yes, I like both versions. And finally, Shin Gojira. Now, you might be wondering why I like all three of those films. Well, the answer's simple, but I'll get into a little more elaboration on that for you. So, Gojira I'm just say Godzilla, I don't want to sound pretentious, but with Godzilla, the original 1954 version, it's a great allegory of man and nature. Stop messing with nuclear energy, or we're going to create monsters, and trying to find a place in the world when this monster, awakens or is created. It's very vague on whether Godzilla was always Godzilla or whether he was created. It's kind of elaborated on in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. However, there are people say that no, that movie doesn't mean anything when it comes to that. That's actually a completely different Godzilla altogether. So it's a very toss up with this. plus the era that it's in, you know, the fear that the Japanese were actually having in the world, and when they created Godzilla, it just to tell the story of, you know, the nuclear conflicts and all the tragedies that happened over there, and the embodiment of Godzilla, plus the way Haruo Nakajima, you know, showed off as Godzilla in an excellent way, by the way. One of my favorite looks is the 54 suit. I don't talk about it that much, but it is. Excellent film. I love the music. In fact, I'm going to go on record as saying it has the saddest ending in any Godzilla film. Yes, more than Destroya, when Godzilla is just sleeping at the bottom of the ocean, and then Dr. Serizawa walks up with the oxygen destroyer. That very ominous and sad music is playing as Godzilla awakens, and he's walking around, and then the oxygen destroyer goes off and kills Godzilla. Now, that's kind of undone in future films, in a way, kind of, sort of, maybe. But, in my opinion, that's the saddest ending. Now, to continue with that idea is actually kind of a direct sequel in Godzilla 1984/85 with the whole Cold War conflict that we were having, the Cold War between the United States and Russia. It was kind of on the same elements, the same kind of themes that the original Godzilla had as well. Actually, bringing up the original Godzilla and showing him more like a stock footage in a way in the 85 version, plus also in 84. It's a direct sequel and it has the same themes. So, plus the suit and the animatronics, plus Petro Satsuma donned the suit of Godzilla in that, and he did a fantastic job. Outstanding work, Satsuma-san. And then finally we come to Shin Godzilla, another film representing the fear and the destruction and the disaster, the Fukushima explosion causing massive destruction, and the way how that was incorporated into the film, and Godzilla once again being the allegory for destruction. Just the way how the film ties all together, all the differences they do with Godzilla as well, makes it one of my favorite films I've seen in a long time as well. Those three are in my number one and must-sees if you're into the Kaiju genre.
And once again, I can't argue with any of those, you know, and out of the three, Shin Godzilla is probably the one that I like the least, but at the same time, I've been watching that film a lot, and each time I watch it, I gain a newfound appreciation and respect for it. Now, does it hold up as much as the original 54? That's the thing. I would say for this generation, probably yes. It may take some time to get to the legendary status that the original is, because that film is just timeless. You know what I mean? That film is like on another level on its own, you know? And I think Shin Godzilla would get there, you know? I mean, it has already done a lot of great things for the hobby. Whether you like the film or hate the film, you can't say that Shin Godzilla's release, or at least everything about it, didn't create more positive than negative, you know? Now, between the three, I think 84 get overlooked. And that film is a gem in itself. You know what I mean? There's so much love about that film. It's dark in tone, how it tries to exhibit the same doom and gloom in a way that 54 did, but did it more so in a modern time during the 80s. But each film is they're just amazing, and they're great starting points for what may follow. Now, with 54, of course, the awesome show series that follow was amazing. With 84, the awesome Heisei series, even though if you have issues with those, you can't say that the Heisei series was more negative than positive, because it was more positive than negative in my opinion. Now with Shin Godzilla, of course, you can say that the future is bright. Now, will it be like how it was in the heyday, where you have like a new monster film coming out every year? No, but we do know there are a lot more good things coming out in response to Shin Godzilla, which is thereby in response to Godzilla 2014. But I am in agreement with you. Those three films are very powerful films. Second to none. Like I mentioned, I think 84 kind of gets overlooked. But I think that film stands along with Shin and the original 54. So I highly recommend every single one of those films. And
now, I think I know why I don't mean to cut you off, I think I know why the 84 is unfairly overlooked. It's because with 85, the American release, they changed so much in the 85 release of Godzilla 1984. It's almost criminal. A lot of the dialogue was rewritten. A lot of the human scenes for the American side was brought in, and if it wasn't for Raymond Burr, the film would have been just very hokey from the American side. In fact, when they were filming the film and they had the idea of bringing Raymond Burr in and making the movie a spoof, he actually refused to actually return and said, "This is not a funny film. This is not meant to be funny. This is a very serious tone, and if you're going to make a joke out of this, I'm not returning." So they had to tone back a lot of their comedy and a lot of their ideas, which, you know, you start to hear, okay, they're trying to make Godzilla 1985 a comedy. That's not good. All right, yes, I love the show series. I love cheese. There's nothing wrong with cheese, but when it's a serious film and all of a sudden you've got a dude slurping down Dr. Pepper and making jokes, you know, you just want to walk over and smack him upside the head and tell him to shut up.
Yeah.
You know, there are certain things that they changed in the 85 film, which I don't think helped the overall production. And as far as it being released on home theater, they just released the Blu-ray, I think last year through Kraken Productions or Kraken Distributors, whatever, Kraken something. As far as 85 is concerned, the only way to get that is on bootleg. And I do own a bootleg of it, so I made a VHS copy of the bootleg version of it, and I got it at a horror movie convention. As far as an official release, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because out of the two films, I prefer 85 over 84. I just think 85 is a better film, it's better paced, and now, does it have comedy in it? Yeah. Is it corny? Yeah, but it doesn't drag the film down, at least in my opinion. It still has the elements of darkness and serious and grim in its story presentation. If nothing else, that Godzilla's design looks scary. You know, he looks mean. He looks very mean and intimidating and imposing. You know, whether his mouth is open or not, he's just not exactly evil, but just a threatening-looking Godzilla. And I loved it, and it was very suitable for the film that was told. But all three films, great films. I highly recommend you watch the first one because, you know, without the first one, you know, it's kind of hard, you know, to understand about the true core of the character if you don't go at the beginning. I know a lot of Godzilla fans don't want to really go there because the original Godzilla before he fought Megalon, before he flew in Hedra, before he was a father figure to Minya, before he was all these happy-go-lucky things, Godzilla came from a tragic period in human history. You know,
yes.
He was a byproduct of that. So I think a lot of folks need to learn the history, and the best resource is the original. And of course, 84 and Shin Godzilla are great companion pieces for the original 54 film, and I highly recommend all three of them. And since that's your number one, let's go to mine. And of course, you already know. Everybody already knows.
Oh yeah.
We already know. So I'm gonna say it anyway. 1964's Mothra versus Godzilla, a.k.a. Godzilla versus Mothra, a.k.a. Godzilla versus The Thing. Now, I say Godzilla versus Mothra because that's how it came out on VHS before we found out about the 1992 version. This, to me, is the perfect Godzilla film. Are there flaws in it? No, I'm good.
All right.
Now, of course, there are some flaws, you know, but this film is the reason why I love Godzilla, you know.
Now, wait, before you go further, if you need to find a flaw with Mothra versus Godzilla, you really, really have to look, and you really have to nitpick this movie really much so. There really isn't anything wrong with this film. And if you're going to say, oh, the suit or the animatronics, okay, those are little byproducts. Okay, I've seen multi-million-dollar films in production that look awful, but, are still heralded as the greatest movies of all time. Okay, so let's not get into that. But as far as story-wise, all right, continue. I'm sorry.
That's the thing. It features one of the best stories. Coming off King Kong versus Godzilla, which was not an easy feat, to be honest with you. Even though it was a campy, just a silly film, coming off that and how successful that film was an enormous feat in itself. So instead of them carrying on with that tradition of being campy, which they would do in Ghidorah 3-Headed Monster and Monster Zero and so on, I'm glad they went back to the darkness of Godzilla's core character with this film. And also a lot of what a lot of folks don't like to talk about, or at least I don't hear them talk about, because when you talk about Mothra versus Godzilla, everybody talks about how sinister Godzilla is, how great of a villain he is, how his suit, his look is like one of the best out there. It's all about Godzilla. I think what also carries this movie is Mothra. With the egg coming to Japan and everybody trying to, claim ownership of it, and then Mothra comes in with the fairies and they are pleading with them to try to get the egg back, because once again they are concerned about their fellow man, and they're concerned about what would happen if Mothra's eggs were to hatch. Honestly speaking, if Mothra really wanted to, Mothra could have really done something to get the egg on her own, but she didn't want to do that because Mothra was a peaceful monster. And even though the egg was her children, if that was my child, I would have done what I had to do to get my child, causing destruction or not. But Mothra being a peaceful monster is not about that. And you have that story there. But then afterwards, once Godzilla comes into the story, once he pops up out of nowhere and starts, attacking Japan, it's like everything just stops. Like, Godzilla is such a great villain and such an imposing threat that everything, once he appears, once he arrives on screen, it's like everything just like, okay, we have to just, we have to come together and Godzilla is the real problem now. That's how much of a threat he is. In King Kong versus Godzilla, you didn't get that sense from him. Of course, when he came back, it was, they were afraid of him because, I think because it was a giant monster, and with Kong coming in, they were afraid of them getting together and causing destruction. But with this film, when they realize that Godzilla is back and there's nothing that can stop him, it's like, oh man, like what do we do? Like they just have no hope left because they recognize how much of a threat that Godzilla really is. And then the whole fight scene involving Godzilla versus Mothra, that's the thing. If you would have asked me, like I said, this is the best Godzilla film to me. It's perfect. But would you ask me, does it feature the best fight scene in a Godzilla film? I would say no. But it's not about that. It's about the story. It's about Godzilla as a character. It's about Mothra, her character. The fact that, that when you find out she's dying, which you don't really find out until, before she goes off to fight Godzilla, and she's fighting a monster where she knows she won't be able to beat him, but she does it anyway. You know what I mean? It's just all these things. And also at the end when Godzilla gets defeated by the two Mothra babies, and I hear a lot of people don't like that scenario. And to those people, and to those people, I say this: if you don't like how Godzilla's defeated in this film, then you can't complain anything about what happened with King Ghidorah in the next film, because that's how King Ghidorah's defeated. And also, if you don't like how Godzilla is beaten in this film, have you ever heard of a story called, I don't know, David versus Goliath? You ever heard anything like that? So in that scenario, Godzilla, he's not the vibrant superhero as he was in 73. Now, had that version of Godzilla been in that film, yeah, Godzilla would probably took care of both Mothras just like that. But in this film, he's slow, he's methodical, he's not the vibrant, quick reacting beast, And if anything, wherever he goes, he's causing mayhem and panic. And of course, they're gonna do what they can to try and stop him. So Godzilla, wherever he goes, is met with with retaliation from either the military or Mothra or anything like that. But that's one thing I also love about this film, that they do a great job of establishing Godzilla, of him being truly unstoppable and mindless. It's like he doesn't have any clear direction where he's going. Kind of like Shin Godzilla in a way. He has no clear direction where he's going, but yet that's what makes it more frightening, that this creature can go anywhere, do anything, and nothing will be able to stop him. And that's one of the best things I love about this film. Between Godzilla, Mothra's story, and the music, special effects, like I said, to me, the near perfect, well, I will say perfect Godzilla film for me, Mothra versus Godzilla.
And it's a great choice. Correct me if I'm wrong, but with the release of Mothra versus Godzilla, Godzilla versus Thing here in the U.S., they actually were extra scenes filmed by the U.S. during a fight sequence with Godzilla where the U.S. Navy was trying to defeat Godzilla with Patriot missiles, but they weren't able to do it. I heard that was an extra shot scene for it. I haven't watched the Japanese version of Mothra vs. Godzilla in a hot minute, so is that true, or is that rumor innuendo?
It's true. The American version has that scene of Godzilla being bombarded by the military at sea, but it's not included in the Japanese version.
Yes, he's walking like down the beach, and they're firing at him. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Yeah, that's only in the American version. And not in Japanese version. You know, it doesn't really make much of a difference because of the fact that it's not in the Japanese version. It's like a nice little scene to have more Godzilla action, even though it's very brief. Because they don't.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I'm not picking on. I'm just saying, it's with the multiple releases. They do have extra things with multiple releases. It's a good thing. I wasn't trying to pick on it.
Oh no! I understand that, and it's just one of those things where I wish it could have been included, but whether it's added or not, it's still showed during that scene that they couldn't stop him, which was basically just the whole theme of the movie, that nothing can stop this Godzilla. And it takes two smaller monsters and the numbers advantage and trickery to beat him, at least not really kill him, but at least stop his rampage from continuing. And that's the thing. Godzilla doesn't win the war in this film. He's not the victor. He's not the winner. But everything he did up until that point, kind of like GMK and how he got what he had coming to him, I don't feel bad that Godzilla, not what I would call him a loser, but he wasn't the victor in this fight. But
he had to be conquered in the end.
He had to be conquered in the end, but at the same time, before then, he conquered everything and everyone that opposed him, and that's awesome. So once again, my favorite and my top favorite Godzilla film, my number one Godzilla film of all time, Mothra vs. Godzilla. And that is our top 10, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we've been talking. Yes, we've been talking for the past couple hours, and hopefully if y'all still with us, thank you so much for listening. You know what I mean? And I can speak on behalf of Gojira851 when I say this, that this is just our opinion, folks. But also at the same time, we recommend every single one of these films that's on our list. If you're new to the Kaiju genre, if you want to get into these films, not exactly collecting per se, because that's kind of like a different avenue, but trust me, once you get into these films, you will want to be a collector. But if you want to get into good Kaiju films, or just good films in general, go to either one of these films on this list, and you will not be disappointed. You know what I mean? Gojira851, do you have anything that you want to add?
What I like to add, like Leslie just said, all these films are able to be picked up and be enjoyed, and just sit back and enjoy them. And these are our personal picks, just to watch. There's no real wrong answer to this. These are kind of like our own struggles with the top 10. Even I think I struggled a little more because I kept on listing full trilogies and multiple movies for each thing. So I guess I really cheated on this. But, just trying to keep along with the theme of my picks, that's where I was coming from with that. But all these films I highly recommend. I know you highly recommend, and all are very fun, and all have very special meanings to them. Now, if there's special films that you really like that we didn't list, it's not because we don't like them. It's just, they're probably on another one of our lists. Just these are just the overall ones that we really gravitate to and really, really like.
Absolutely. And if you like some of Godzilla, which didn't make either one of our lists, there's nothing wrong with that. If you like King Kong versus Godzilla, there's nothing wrong with that. If you like Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, there's nothing wrong with that. Or Final Wars. There's no right or wrong reason. Whatever film that you like is what you like, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it, despite of it not being popular or being popular amongst Godzilla fans. I know Godzilla fans, we can be very critical of one another.
Very passionate individuals. We can be very passionate individuals.
Yeah, but we can also be very critical. But don't let that stop you from loving these films, despite whether they may be popular with other people or whatnot. So once again, I want to thank every single one of you to listen to Gojira851 and my discussion involving our top 10 favorite kaiju films of all time. This really has been fun. This has been like our 4th or 5th collaboration. Trust me, there are more collaborations between the two of us to come.
Oh, yeah.
Go check out Gojira851 on YouTube. Great content. Kaiju figure reviews, Kaiju movie reviews. He just did a review of the new movie Justice League that just came out this past weekend at the time of this recording. Go check it out. He does it all. He's a great YouTuber, informative, just highly passionate, and is just one of the best YouTubers out there, and he's one of my best friends. So, So, yes, thank you so much, Gojira851, for doing this with me, and trust me, like I said, we will do this again. And do you have anything else that you want to plug, or anything upcoming that you want to talk about as regards to your channel?
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this. It's always fun. It's always like a walk in the park whenever we're talking. We never really have a disagreement. If we do have like a quote disagreement about something, it's always something that we always talk about immediately squash. It's nothing ever really problems that we have with each other. I always look forward to this, and I always have fun doing these. And as far as the future, I was going to try and let this be a surprise, but I'm pretty sure everyone's figured it out. On November 29th, they're shipping out the second batch of gigantic Shin Godzillas from Hobby Search, and I am down for one. I should be getting it probably the week after, so pretty much soon I'm going to be doing the gigantic Shin Godzilla, my first gigantic figure, to add to the collection. Cannot wait for that. Check out Mr. Leslie Chambers' Kaiju reviews. Watch his review, the whole hour of it. It is very informative. It has allowed me to make room and do measurements, do everything that I need to do to properly have the figure, because he shows it off with other gigantic figures as well as smaller figures as well. It looks awesome. I can't wait for it. Watch his video. It's awesome. But there is one thing I wish to go back to. It's really quick with Godzilla 1984. You brought up the comment that, with his mouth closed or his mouth open, he looks awesome. Here's something that I always like to think whenever his mouth is closed. He always has that, evil contemplation or that really annoyed look on his face whenever his mouth is closed. He's, constantly really, what do these people think that they're doing? They actually think this is going to work. And then, his eyes kind of go up. He's, almost rolling his eyes whenever they're shooting at him, and clearly missing, by the way, but still, whatever. It just has that really annoyed look on his face. It's awesome. I love that look on his face. If I could, reenact that look on my face, I would do that at work all the time. Just have that one look that Godzilla 84 has on his face. Now, it's kind of dorky to say. I don't care. Let the cheese flow. I want to make that. I think I want to make that a shirt. Let the cheese flow.
Yeah, because trust me, you have to have your tolerance of cheese to enjoy these movies. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, because even though they're cheesy, I will hold these films up to the so-called blockbusters that come out nowadays. If the whole name of the game is to be thoroughly entertained and to thoroughly enjoy what you're watching, look no further than these films on both our top 10 lists right here. All right, so thank y'all so much for listening on this Thanksgiving Day. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. Gojira851, thank you so much for doing this. And once again, we will be back with another collaboration in the future, so stay on the lookout on both he and my YouTube channels, Gojira851, and myself, Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews. All right, so I thank y'all for listening so much. I really do appreciate it, and I will see y'all again on next Figure and Move Review. All right. Y'all take it easy. Thanks, man.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.